How does it feel to be the permanent head coach?
Yeah, I'm very excited, a little bit overwhelmed, but really, really pleased to get the opportunity of leading this great club for the next 2.5 years.
How did they break the news to you?
I had the interview last Friday, a couple of hours getting grilled, and basically putting my, plan across on, my thoughts and suggestions and explaining, what I wanted to do with the team in terms of direction and, what I think we need, etc. It's great to get in front of the board and have that chat. Really liked obviously the challenge that interview process, put on me, which was, good. And then by the time I got home at 6:30, they had a little bit of a chat, and they obviously spoke to a couple of other people, and brought the news to me on for the weekend. So yeah, really pleased.
What's the first thing that flits through your mind when you get that call?
A sense of relief. There was a big sense of relief. And like I say, I was a little bit stunned, to be honest. It's been a long time coming, and I think the fact that I've had to play it out for the last 6 weeks, it's allowed me sort of like to get my head around it a little bit and sort of like get my emotions in check. If there was some disappointment, like be comfortable that, I'd give it my best shot. And then obviously to get the news, I was just absolutely over the moon. It's, a great moment for myself and my family, and, just really, really excited by, opportunity that's, being presented to me.
So now it's official, now it's confirmed. What's the first thing that you set about doing? And is there something that you can do now officially that you weren't able to do over the last 6 weeks to take the club forward?
I think the big thing for us is just focus this week on Hulkington Rovers. Put a fair bit of time and effort into, previewing in them and making sure that we have a good performance. I think we've been competitive the last 3 or 4 weeks in terms of, going for 80 minutes against the opponents that we've come up against. It started obviously at Catalan away, and then we managed to get the win against Wakefield, and then, we're right in the contest up until probably the last plays of the game against Salford. So there's been some positives to build on in terms of how we've been competing. Some things that we've, touched on from a video point of view, but also on the training field, on areas that we need to improve. Our good ball attack, needs to sharpen up, and we need to ask more questions of the opposition. I think a real big one for us is increasing our support play. Making people accountable for supporting the ball carrier more, which hopefully will give us more opportunities to play, and taking, some risks sometimes, a calculated risk, having the confidence to offload and, find the odd pass, because defensively we're looking a little bit more solid. So that's something that I've stressed, and, that's been a big focus for us this week with KR in mind.
And given it's all confirmed now and everyone knows what's happening, do you feel like the team can kick on? And do you feel like it's been a distraction at all over the last 6 weeks?
I'd like to say it wasn't, but you never know what's going on in the heads of players. There's a lot of uncertainty with regards to playing contracts, etc. at the club, and 14 off contract, which has been spoken about, obviously, on numerous occasions. So that little bit of uncertainty, I'm sure, has crept in. Now they know that obviously I'm the head coach for the next 2.5 years. They'll be able to really, really focus on their performance, and if they're going to be here, they're going to have to play well. We're going to have to get some results, and we're going to have to get some, better performances from one of the two of them, and that'll allow them the best opportunity of, either renewing the contract at Castleford or potentially getting a contract elsewhere. So, the benefits for everybody in terms of there's some clarity for those players, and now those players can just focus all their attention on performing well. I think that's a win-win for everyone.
And this will sound like an interview question, but are you able to give us an insight into your vision for the club over the next 2.5 years?
Yeah, I think, a wise man said to me, if you can get the players, the coaching staff, the fans, and everyone associated at Castleford feeling the way I do now, which is proud to be Cass, we won't go far wrong. So that's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of tough decisions which need to be made. But if we can get those players, playing with that pride on a weekly basis, we won't go far on in terms of competing at the right end of the competition, and also trying to get the players to understand that rich history that Castleford have in terms of creative players, and the success I've had by playing, that style of rugby. And it's certainly a style which I've enjoyed watching, and, I had sleepless nights previewing against previously. And we want to continue that, because that is the Castleford way. It's been there for a long time. It's part of the club's DNA, and, obviously I want to build on that and just make sure that, we've got a real desire to compete week in, week out, and put a shift in.
And you've waited, Andy, you've waited a long time for this opportunity. Does it make all the hard yards worthwhile?
Yeah, it certainly does. Going back to that tough conversation at Hull, when, I broke my tib, fib and ankle, and, just weren't quite at the level, to be a sub league player on a week to week basis. And, Sean McRae saw something in me in terms of, being a bit of an anorak, and, loving the game of rugby and asking lots of questions, and thought it'd be a good fit for him to have, me on as a player coach of the reserve grade. And, that was, a long while ago now. So I've been coaching, like I say, since, 2003, that was. So, I've had a fair old, experience, and worked with plenty of great coaches, learnt a lot from the coaches I've worked with. And I've had the luxury of working with some unbelievable players, and, players of international standard, from New Zealand and Australia, and then international players or English. And, I've done my hard yards. I've worked in the youth, I've worked at scholarship. I've been academy coach and 18 coaches, and all that type of stuff, and had a little bit of a go as an interim head coach. And then, spent a little bit of time, obviously, at different clubs in Hull FC and obviously Wakefield. But now I'm here at Cass, and I'm going to draw on all them experiences and that knowledge, and, know that, I'm going to give it my absolute all each and every day. And, hopefully you'll see the players become an extension of me and how I want to be as a coach, which is, hard-working, diligent, and full of passion and enthusiasm. And hopefully the players will replicate that on the field.
To which end tomorrow's game? What sort of changes are you mulling over potentially?
Obviously Gareth Widdop, in a part of the 21. The illness, which obviously he had a couple of weeks ago, hasn't cleared up as much as we wanted to. He was a little bit low on energy last week. Thought he was going to be okay, but then due to the contest, felt quite fatigued during the contest, which impacted obviously on his performance. And, he felt, he needed to, probably gain a little bit more weight, to be functioning closer to obviously his best. So, we've made a decision, to stand him down, to get on top of obviously, his weight, and getting his strength markers back up to where they need to be. So, that's an area where, we've got a little bit of concern with Gaz. So he's going to be okay, but like I say, he'd lost a fair bit of weight due to that illness that he had a couple of weeks back. So we're monitoring that, and hopefully he'll be back soon. And that gives us the opportunity to obviously get, Jack Broadbent back into that position where he was so successful for us. So, that's a change, but it's a good one, because, Jack's excelled in that position. It gets him one pass closer to the ball, and, he's certainly a run threat. So I'm looking forward to obviously seeing Jack back there.
Will Tate's in the squad as well, isn't he, for the first time? Could it be a big evening for him against his former side?
Yeah, it could. Will's obviously someone we brought in a couple of weeks back. Played a full game for the reserves against Hull Kingston Rovers on Saturday. Did a good job. He's athletic, really good lad in terms of professionalism. Very diligent in his preparation, and he's got some offensive strike. He's quick, carries the ball well, and is the type of player who, can make a difference in a game. So, he's certainly someone that we're considering, bringing in the team, and he could potentially be making his debut.
And KR have got no issue with Lewis Johnson facing them.
No, no. I think I read a report. Willie said, it's okay if he plays against them. He's obviously a Castleford Tigers player, so obviously they'll know Lewis's strengths and his weaknesses. If Lewis plays, I'm sure they'll be challenging him. And if Lewis obviously does get the opportunity, he'll want to showcase obviously his parent club, what he can do and what he's capable of. Obviously, he's played the last couple of games and has done reasonably well. Got a really nice frame and he's got a good mannerism regards to how he goes about his business. So, if Lewis plays, look forward to seeing how he goes against his parent club.
Just lastly for me, how do you read KR at the moment?
They're playing very, very well. Watched them against St Helens. It was a titanic match. St Helens missed a couple of opportunities, which they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't take. So, there's some areas where we think we may be able to expose them. But Willie and obviously his coaching team have done a very, very good job with the team that is put together and the way that they're going about the business. They're very, very direct and strong out of backfield. Ryan Hall is playing exceptionally well, and Sean Kelly now, has been a sensational signing for him. And then, in Corey Olo, made debut from last week. He's a threat and he's a handful, and he's got some speed, and he's prepared to take a risk and will chance his arm with an offload and a pass. And then Opacek, has come in with great pedigree, NRL, grand finalist last year for the Parramatta Eels. So, they've got a real big, strong, athletic outside backs. And then the forward pack, George King's playing very, very well, getting them on the front foot. And then they've got two exceptionally dangerous runners of the football in Parcell and Litton. So they're a really well-balanced team, and, they're going to pose you some questions. And then in the halves, they've got probably the form player in the comp alongside George Williams and Jordan Abdul. Jordan's obviously someone, I've got a fair bit of time for. I signed him for Hull FC way back when you expressed an interest in players on scholarship, and he was a Hull KR scholarship player, and I expressed an interest in him in my role at Hull FC, which didn't go down too well with the Hull Kingston Rovers hierarchy. But, he showed that quality, way back then. And he's just gone on to obviously become a really, really well-established halfback in the competition. He's got a great kicking game, very, very smart rugby league player. And he's an anorak of the game, he loves the game. And then, the foil for obviously Jordan as the organiser for Hull KR is, young Michael Lewis, who's a real box of tricks, real dangerous runner of the football. He's got that instinct to sniff out an opportunity. He gets himself on the score sheet. He gets himself on the ends of kicks. So they're a really, really good team. I've got huge respect for obviously what they're doing as a team and what they're doing as a club. So, we need to make sure that we're at our best to beat them.
Just firstly, in touching on some of that JD touched on earlier, now there's uncertainty around the coach situation is gone. Are you hoping to see a bit more freedom from the players in an attacking sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping the work that we've done from a defensive point of view in terms of, just working a little bit harder for each other and competing a little bit harder and controlling that ruck area a little bit better, that will allow us the freedom to play a little bit more higher risk rugby and, play the cast way, chance your arm a little bit more, offload a little bit more, find a couple more passes. And if the ball hits ground and, that pass doesn't quite, hit the mark, don't worry about it too much because you're prepared to defend it. So I'm hoping the confidence of our defence will allow us to play with a little bit more freedom in attack.
Yeah, I don't think the forecast hasn't been kind again with loads of rain expected tomorrow before another home game. We have to put your plans to play an entertaining brand of rugby on hold for a couple of weeks, or is there still a place for it in wet weather?
There's still a place for it. I think, probably playing a fraction earlier and, making sure that your skill in terms of your catch and pass is a little bit better and just taking that extra second in to play the ball. You might have to kick the ball a little bit earlier and play field position a little bit more, but there's always a place to, play some rugby. And I think, what we've got to do is have the confidence, you know, to play a little bit. When the opportunities present themselves, back yourself and nail your skill and your execution, and try and post more points when those opportunities present themselves. So yeah, I've seen the forecast. It probably brings into focus, you know, Jordan's kicking game and our own kicking game. So you know, that is something that, you know, we'll adjust and deal with, obviously, when it comes to game day.
Yeah, you get the impression from some Cast fans that they'd rather lose 40-38 than win 12-10. Is it result first for you every week, which might mean adapting your tactics slightly?
Yeah, I think for us it's about winning first and foremost. You know, we're in a game where it's all about the 2 points. I think every coach would, you know, prefer to get a win rather than a, you know, performance in terms of pretty on the eye. But I'd rather us, you know, don't get me wrong, I'd rather us play well and win, but you know, I'd rather us win first. So, you know, we need to make sure that we get some wins on the board, and then we can start really like nailing down, obviously, aspects of the performance. We've done a fair bit of work this week. You know, the weather's been kind to us, being able to get out on the field. And it's all been obviously regards to our attack, you know, tweaks a couple of little things from a defensive point of view, but, you know, just try and get better combinations building as an edge, and better combinations building, obviously, through our middles and through that span of the team. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some, you know, points posted tomorrow.
How do you go about getting the fans on side? That might take a bit of convincing about the appointment.
It's out of my control, that, you know, if some of the fans aren't happy with, you know, my appointment, the only way that I can get them on side is by, you know, making sure that this team work hard, make sure this team, you know, play with the desire and commitment that's expected of Castleford's team. And then once we start getting some results and start getting some better performances, hopefully those people will maybe sit on the fence a little bit, will get behind us. I think the big thing is, you know, the Castleford supporters, you know, get behind the team. The attendances, you know, at home this year have been exceptionally good. You know, it's about supporting the team. It's important that, you know, they get behind the boys who are actually performing on the game day.
And now you've got the job permanently, and taking into account the start you've had, what will constitute a good finish in Super League?
Constitute a good finish in Super League. Oh, tough one. I just think making sure that, you know, we're competing week in, week out, and picking up more wins than we've currently got. Trying to take out, you know, some wins against teams that we should be beating. And I think making sure that our home form is very, very good. It's a tough place to come. If you get the performances right and the atmosphere is rocking at the Jungle, our home form, you know, is vitally important for obviously what we want to do. Not only this season but moving forward. So, you know, I think a mid-table and challenging at the latter end of the season and around, you know, those playoff spots, I think would determine a good season.
You talked before about you being grilled for a couple of hours. Presumably the board told you what they want of you. Did you get the chance to say to them what you want from them?
Yeah, we spoke openly and honestly. You know, there's quite clearly, you know, a plan being put in place for, you know, the direction that we want to take the team. There's some exciting things happening off the field with regards to the new ground, and obviously the announcement with regards to IMG and the fact that, you know, we're going to tick plenty of boxes, and also the work that's being done in the background with regards to the youth. You know, there's been some, you know, good work done in the last 18 months with our youth performance pathways and, you know, getting that Castleford brand out there, and the fact that we're actually being considered from, you know, young players in and around, you know, the Castleford, the Leeds, Wakefield area, you know, to potentially come and sign on our scholarship, you know, speaks volumes of the work that's being done. So, you know, there is a plan, and you know, the board were obviously, you know, really supportive of what we want to do.
And presumably there's a fairly common vision that you and the board have as to how the club goes forward.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and that'll obviously be communicated, and you know, that sort of vision, you know, will be out there hopefully in the, you know, next couple of weeks with regards to, you know, what we're looking to do. But like I say, you know, there's some exciting proposals. You know, the potential new ground. You know, that's going to take Catterford to a different level. And hopefully, you know, we'll get some performances and we get our recruitment and retention right. And, you know, you'll be able to see in our performance on the field, you know, the direction that we want to take the club in.
And looking sort of more immediately, because the new ground will take at least 2 or 3 years to come into any sort of fruition. You mentioned these 14 players off contract, but will it need more than just new players to sort of propel Cast higher up the league, maybe in future seasons?
Yeah, it's going to take, you know, a whole club ethic, and everybody obviously working together, you know, to drive standards and improve aspects of what we do. I think the team and our recruitment and retention is, you know, vitally important. And I think that the teams will, you know, get that right consistently, or the ones who always find themselves, you know, battling at the top end of the ladder. And I think what's important for us is we get, you know, our retention and recruitment right. You know, picking, you know, the right players in terms of, you know, profile and age and fitting the DNA of what we want, and then trying to get, you know, the development pathway right and getting some, you know, Cast lads through playing for, you know, their town.
Just a quick one. It's just been announced then that Jason Carragher is going on loan to Bradford. Is that just to get him some game time under his belt?
Yeah, definitely. Jason's is a player who's got huge potential, and we want to obviously create a pathway for him. But Jason needs to, you know, work on some aspects of his game. And I think getting some consistent rugby at Bradford in the Championship is going to stretch him a little bit more than the reserves does. And, you know, we've spoken to obviously the Bradford coach about areas that, you know, we need Jason to do a little bit more. Needs to improve, obviously, out of yardage and carry the ball a little bit more and just, you know, influence the games more. I think when he gets his hands on the ball, he's such a dangerous player in terms of his speed and his athleticism. We want to, you know, see him stretch himself, and I think, you know, the opportunity to go and get some first team experience at Bradford will help him to do that.
Yeah, we've seen him play quite a lot on the wing and a little bit fullback. Where do you see his long term position?
I think his long term position is as a winger. You know, in the Greg Eden mould, you know, express, ability to finish, very instinctive, can go from trial line to trial line, you know, score some sensational tries. Just need to improve, you know, a little bit of his physicality and a little bit of his application to get in and get himself involved in the game. Sometimes it's not always, you know, the spectacular stuff, which is important. Sometimes it's the roll your sleeves up and get your set started and get some carries. And that's something that, you know, Jace is aware of, and hopefully we'll see that for him at Bradford.
Yeah, good stuff. And just on you getting the full-time appointment, are you excited to kind of get your hands and teeth stuck into stuff like recruitment and retention? Obviously, you mentioned the 14 players off contract. Obviously, you've got to have a big say in who stays and who potentially moves on at the end of the year, and you've got to have your say now in terms of players you're actually bringing into the club.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm looking forward to that side of it. I tinkered a little bit with my position as assistant coach in terms of, you know, the recruitment and retention decisions, and you offered up, you know, your opinions on certain players, that type of stuff. But, you know, as a head coach, you're heavily involved in that. You know, the guys obviously at the club in terms of, you know, Mark, the general manager, and, you know, Danny Willow, they're obviously in the background, you know, working on, you know, potential players coming in. You know, we will sit and discuss, you know, what we think we need, what's important for us in terms of application, in terms of attitude, and, you know, playing ability. And we'll come up with a list, and, you know, we'll go about trying to get the right people into the club.
Did you struggle to keep it to yourself at the weekend? You know, I thought you might have rung us and let us know, but you didn't.
The only people I let know was you know, my immediate family, mum, dad, my brother and sister, and you know, my mother and father-in-law, and then obviously my wife and my 3 kids. it was keeping the 3 kids from telling everybody, which was the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
That was the biggest challenge, with the world of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that type of stuff. They're all over those social media platforms. So I had to tell my 15-year-old girl to make sure that she didn't post it anywhere where, the news could get out. And, my twin boys, down at their rugby club, West Hull, there was, bursting to tell people, It was it was a nice weekend, but they were sworn to secrecy, and thankfully, they kept the secret and kept the word that they weren't going to tell anybody, and we managed to get it out there in the right avenues.
Did you go out and celebrate?
My celebration was last night. I had a bag of Maltesers and a Galaxy. That's my unfortunately that's one of my go-tos. I've got a real sweet tooth. I love my chocolate. So
yeah.
I said to the wife last night, I'm going to celebrate tonight. So I watched the movie, and then I had a bar of chocolate and a bag of Maltesers, and the wife had a glass of wine. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice to, finally, be in a position where, I'm able to say, I'm a head coach. Obviously, I've spent a little bit of time as an interim coach at Castleford, and spent a little bit of time at Hull FC as an interim coach. It's nice to, be able to say, I'm a head coach at Castleford Tigers, and I'm very proud to be so.
It's a good job you didn't apply for the nutritionist job by the sound of it, though, Andy. But yeah, well, great stuff. And obviously, the interesting thing for me is you've got the job. Obviously, it's a big game tomorrow night against Hull KR, and it would be great to start with a win. But I mean, you've just been talking about the Hull KR players, and you've made me think, my God, they do sound like a bloody good team, actually. And I don't know whether you just, trying to make them feel complacent, but my gosh, they will be a challenge. But obviously, after Friday night's game, there's going to be a 2-week gap to the next game with the international weekend. I assume you'll be involved with England, will you? With Sean Wayne in that game, so you won't have much time to sit back and reflect, will you? I don't suppose.
No, there won't be much time to sit back and reflect. We'll be in training with Castleford on the Monday, and then they're in training on the Wednesday and the Thursday before getting the weekend off before the league game, which is the following Friday. So we'll still be working with Castleford and putting some training sessions on for the guys to get some reps and build on some combinations and start to implement some tweaks and adjustments to the way that we want to play. So, I'm excited, to get on the training field without the added pressure of preparing for a game. Sometimes it's difficult, when you've always got an eye on the opposition. This week, leading into the international week, we'll be able to, focus solely on, Castleford Tigers and what we want to be about and what we want to improve and what we want to do. It's important that you get that balance right, looking after what you need to do better, but also having an eye on what the opposition do. So that week where there's no game for Castleford and there's no opposition to preview and there's no opposition to focus on, we'll be able to actually, really focus on our own structures and systems and get some quality work done in improving what we need to be better at.
Will you have much time to spend with England then? Because I assume that the England squad will also have some training sessions on the field during that week.
Yeah. The England schedule, I'll be. I think the England schedule is the Tuesday, Wednesday we're in training, and then there's a team run on Friday. So I've managed to land it sort of like fitted the Castleford week in with the England week. So I'll be at both sessions. So yeah, it's going to be a big week, but I'm excited. Look forward to it. It's a huge honour to be able to lead Castleford Tigers, and likewise, it's a huge honour to be part of the England setup as an assistant coach. So I am extremely grateful for the opportunity that I've got with both teams.
Yeah, just going back to what was said a bit earlier about the IMG grading proposals. I mean, from now on, it's going to be as important to get, marks on that grading system, or almost as important as it is to get wins on the board in the Super League competition. And I think with the best will in the world, it would take a very optimistic and pretty one-eyed Castleford fan to claim that the club is currently a Grade A, club that's going to get the 15 points that clears it for Super League. Obviously, there are a lot of things to put into place before it can be assured of that. And you were saying you had this discussion with the directors. Are you confident that the directors have got their eyes on the ball and can actually deliver at least 15 points, in terms of all those grading criteria, not necessarily straight away, but, at some point in the not too distant future?
Oh yeah, most definitely. They've been on with that since these proposals obviously came into play. I think the stuff that the club has done with regards to the youth, getting the accreditation, getting the academy license, that has been a huge benefit to the club and a huge benefit to the area. So, that's a real positive piece of work which has been done. And the club have, done an exceptional amount of work, to make sure that the youth pathway and the youth system is going to provide for Castleford Tigers. And it also, services, obviously, the IMG proposals. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with regards to the ground and, getting that up to speed and, trying to, get the first spade in the ground, so to speak, on the new facility. So yeah, there's been a lot of work going on in the background, and the board and the people obviously working from the administration side at the club have been working extremely hard to make sure that the club fits the criteria what's needed.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the ground proposal is due to hopefully receive planning permission, hopefully in the not too distant future, and everybody obviously hopes that there won't be any objections from anybody that would cause it not to be given. But do you have any idea? Because we've not had a lot of information from the club about the timetable for the ground being redeveloped. Have you any idea when the first spade might go into the ground? Was that part of your discussion with the directors?
No, we didn't discuss that. So I'm not sure on time scales and when where it might start. I just do know that they spent a fair bit of time with the council and with what they need to in terms of getting things ready and in place for as and when they get the green light. So yeah, I'm not none the wiser on that sort of stuff. Yeah,
and on the James made an interesting comment, I thought, earlier, saying that there are some Castleford fans who'd rather lose 38-40 than win, but in a brilliant game, than win 12-10 in a dour game. Well, I must say I'd like to meet those fans, because I've never met any Castleford fan who would prefer to lose, rather than win, whatever the style of play. But the squad, has been criticised in the fairly recent past, and I think a few months ago was one of those who criticised it for being relatively old compared to the vast majority of squads in Super League. The age profile looked pretty high to me, certainly last year. Bringing in young kids like Tate and Johnson, Liam Johnson from Hull KR, does begin to lower that profile a bit. But presumably, when you sit down and look at your squad and you've got those 14 guys coming out of contract, I assume one of your objectives is to lower the age profile and make it a bit more of an even divide between experienced players and players sort of middle ranked in terms of experience, and the younger guys who are coming in, who maybe like Jason Gary or whoever it might be, coming in at the young end to, guarantee a good long-term future. Yeah, definitely. That's a challenge, getting that balance right within your squad. Age is just a number. I understand that. And some of the players have got exceptional experience and they pass on that experience, to some of the younger members of the squad currently. But I do feel that we need to make sure that we get that balance, because the game is fast, it's furious. The intensity of the matches, is getting harder and harder on a year-on-year basis. And, we need to make sure that, we've got some young, fresh bodies who are able to, play with that high energy and that high intensity and train with that high energy and high intensity alongside, the guys who are experienced and,
can use those younger legs to their benefit. So, that is a work in progress. It's not easy. It's a challenge, that the recruitment and retention, and there's plenty of teams who are in a similar position to myself in terms of looking into a market and trying to pick out the right players, what fit the profile, not only in terms of age but also fit the profile in terms of what they can add to your team. So it's one which I'm enjoying, and it's been challenging, but we need to make sure that we get that right.
In terms of recruitment, Andy, I mean, clubs have recruited from the NRL in the past, but you get the feeling now that NRL salaries are going so much way beyond what we can afford to pay that it's almost a lost cause now. Looking, you can look in the NRL and maybe get real fringe players who are not getting regular spots in NRL teams, but it's going to be very difficult to recruit players with experience. So I suppose it means you've got to look elsewhere and look to your own resources. So, I mean, do you share that view? Would you say your focus will tend to be much more on domestic recruitment rather than looking overseas?
It depends on the quality. I think a real big thing for us is the overseas market. Like you say, it's a challenging market because of how high their salary cap is. The players who may be available to you may be coming for, the old last payday, and the best years are well and truly behind them. But if that person can influence your culture and influence and pass on experience and have a real meaningful impact on the club, then, we'd certainly be in the market for those type of players. But a few and far between. The market in England, there's some good young players who are available, and the challenge for us is making sure that we pick the right ones. So yeah, it's a fine balance, and if the right player from overseas became available and we felt that he fitted for us, then we'd make a play for him. But we need to make sure that we're looking everywhere, looking in the NRL and looking at the levels below the NRL, Q Cup and New South Wales Cup. But then we're also obviously looking in Super League and looking around the Championship. There's some good players knocking around the Championship. One of them we picked up last year, Kieran Hudson, strong front row. Unfortunately, he picked up an Achilles injury. We felt as though he was going to have a good impact on the season before obviously his injury. So there are players out there. You've just got to make sure that you're looking in the right areas, and I think the big thing is you're picking the right people for your club, just not only in playing ability but in terms of the character of them as people, and that's something that we've spoken about.
Yeah, I just wanted an injury update really. Liam Watts back in the team. Was that shorter than expected?
Yeah, it's probably a week ahead of schedule. He had a bit of an AC joint, but he's ticked all the boxes that we needed him to tick in terms of injury and rehab, and getting back in amongst training and getting some reps under his belt. So I'm looking forward to Liam being back in the fold. He's a senior player in our team and our squad, and we need some big performances from him to help us start turning these narrow defeats into wins.
Is there any update on Kane Robb and Callum McClelland at all?
Yeah, Kane Robb, he's out his pot. He's got another couple of weeks training. I'm hoping he'll be available for selection leading into the league game. Callum McClelland is, just working away on his rehab. He's still, somewhere where he's got some, work to do. Unfortunately, Callum's just, feels as though he's potentially, a couple of months away from, being available for, playing. So.
And now there's constant speculation about Jack O'Neill potentially returning. Are you able to comment on that at all?
I've got a text, so if I check that, then I'll be able to get back to you. No, with regard to Jackson Hill, I'm not so sure what the stances on that. I've heard one or two rumours myself. Jackson's always been in and around the club. You know, he's been at games, he's been visible. He's still contracted to Catterford Tigers. So you know, he's someone that we see on a regular basis. He's still in contact with one or two of the players. So you know, there's nothing really to confirm or deny on that one.